All right, welcome into the show. Happy Monday. Gronk is retired. Reid Forgrave is going to swing by to give us some insight on March Madness. We've got a lot of tournament to dive into, and it's our final week doing the show from New York. We're heading to LA next week, so let's get started.
Up center. Williamson driving in on Taco, and it's going to knock down the fall as the basket goes. A free throw to tie it. 5 out of 6 at the line. Missed it. Comes up short. Duke. Barrett follows it up for the lead. And with 11 seconds. Inbound out to Taylor. Jones is on him. Taylor driving in, banks it up. No. Put back. In and out. And Duke survives. Just barely.
Oh, what a heartbreak. There's so many ways that's a heartbreaker for UCF. Hard fought. But for me, it's the offensive rebound off the missed free throw that just gets at me. But as a result of Duke barely surviving, here's where we stand. March Madness heading to the Sweet 16, and you know it, and you can see it there. It is almost exactly chalk. There's only a few exceptions. Oregon, who's on fire going back to the end of February, haven't lost a game in 10 straight games. And Auburn, both those top 15 teams in the preseason top 25, by the way. It also is the first time that the top 16 betting favorites have won in the round of 32 in March Madness. That's a pretty impressive stat, which means, as frustrated as people were with the committee for various reasons, they did a pretty amazing job. And we start with Duke and barely surviving the scare for so many of you in your brackets, me included. I have my championship game, and for Duke fans everywhere. And really, that was a game where there was going to be a loser, even though both teams played like winners. That always adds up to heartbreak. It feels like heartbreak. And inside that UCF locker room afterwards, it was a very emotional moment.
We always said it's going to end two ways when you invest like we invest. We're going to end, man, celebrating. We're going to end crying. We're going to end in tears. We end in tears. That's because we invested, as I said before, so much in each other and so much in what we were doing. I know this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a while. I've been in it before and the same thing. But we're proud of you guys. We're proud of the effort and the energy that you gave us all year long. Chad, what are we going to say, man?
Hey, family on three, family on three. 1, 2, 3, family.
I promise you, UCF fans, I've been there. I'm a Missouri fan, a Cubs fan. I get it. It hurts, but what a lot of class that your head coach showed. You guys should hold your heads high. You played like champions, even though you obviously don't get the chance to advance. One team that is moving on, I don't know if we can call Oregon a Cinderella team. I mean, they got the power of Nike. Dana Altman, I would argue, is a top 10, maybe better coach in the country in college basketball. They're incredibly talented, and they're on fire. But they're still a 12 seed. They are the lowest seed that is still around at the 12. They beat UC Irvine, a 13 seed, to advance to the Sweet 16. And they've got one of the most dangerous weapons in their arsenal as they try to continue to move forward in March, and that is momentum. They have won 10 games in a row. They've been led by those two guys you see right there. Dana Altman has been playing really, really good basketball. I interviewed Coach heading into the tournament, and you could tell he felt confident about what his team was about. Another head coach we talked to here on this show was Texas Tech's Chris Beard, and now Tech carries the mantle by themselves for their conference for the Big 12. The Big 10, well represented, has played really well. The ACC, obviously, a lot of teams still in contention. It is just Texas Tech and the Red Raiders that are still around, and it's defense that's propelled them the #1 defensive rating in the country. And Chris Beard, their head coach, when he was on the show last week, talked about defense is how this team gets the job done.
The story here this year with our defense is our players have really bought in, led by our 4 seniors. They've really bought into the idea that defense is our DNA, it's our identity. We have to guard at a high level to be successful.
I mean, Chris Beard's such an interesting guy. There's a lot of people who've been mentors to him, but he is the most real personification of the Bobby Knight approach, Bobby Knight and a Pat Knight disciple. Watching Tech play, it's interesting. It's what Bobby Knight's team might look like if he were still doing his thing in 2019. I owe an apology to Houston. I was wrong. Houston looks legit. They look like a team that deserved to be rated as high as they were in net rating and by Ken Palm. They are really, really good, and they could give Kentucky a whole bunch of hiccups. They could get past Kentucky for a few reasons. First of all, Wofford had a chance to beat Kentucky and just went cold from the three-point line. Houston plays a very similar style. They just do it more effectively. They're better. They're more athletic. They might be better coached. That's a very good team. And the other problem for Kentucky, and I have Kentucky in my Final Four, so I'm rooting for them, is that they're starting to get felled by injury. They don't have a lot of guys, a reality Coach Cal talked about this weekend.
If you're not there, sub yourself. I said, I know if you get subbed, you think you're not going back in. We only got 8 guys. We can't even practice. So if you take yourself out, you're going to go back in. We don't have enough guys.
I love it. I love it when Cal is angry. We've got a pretty good story involving me and Cal when I once made his temple throb coming on the show over the next few weeks. A little story time. We're excited about that. Appreciate you. A lot to get to. Reid Forgrave's coming up. Some Gronk news. And with a chalk Sweet 16, we are set for some really, really good games. And most of you, unless you got crazy, your brackets probably still look pretty strong. But we're going to find out where the real winners lie, where the real winners sit when we get some basketball started again this Thursday to get some perspective on what's already happened, how it impacts the draft. Reid Forgrave is going to join me here on the program in just a moment on CBS Sports HQ. All right, welcome back into New York City. It's the last 3 shows from New York City. Starting next week, I'll be broadcasting Writer's Block from Los Angeles, California. So let's bring in friend of the show, Reid Forgrave, for the beginning of our New York send-off. Hello, Mr. Forgrave.
What's going on, Mr. Reiter? Congratulations for the big move to Los Angeles. Must be pretty exciting.
I thought you were going to go with the Los Angeles County Big Lebowski reference. You let me down. But Duke did not let down those people, including yourself, who had them going pretty far in the tournament. Really close game against Central Florida. Really, UCF should have won that contest. What a heartbreaker for those guys. We just saw a clip of their struggles at the end of the game, just the emotions of it. For Duke, does it change anything, do you think, for this team going forward?
Yeah, I mean, that post-game speech by Johnny Dawkins, that's what I want in my coach. But for Duke, I don't think it changes a single thing going forward. Let's be honest, Bill. They should have lost, period. One of those 2 shots at the end of the game should have gone in. And yet, it got me thinking when I saw that ball just hanging on the rim and then falling out. It got me thinking of last year when Duke lost in the Elite Eight to Kansas in overtime. Grayson Allen had a shot to win it, and it was the same sort of thing. The ball hung on the rim, fell off the rim, Duke ends up losing. That's why we love March Madness. The beauty of it is that this game, this one moment, means everything to these guys. And you see pain on one side, joy on the other. And what we have now with Duke is a team that escaped, a team that can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And in a way, I do think that this game could help Duke going forward. Every team that wins a title has at least one scare along the way. This could be Duke's one scare.
All right, so Duke advances. Part of the reason it is almost straight chalk all the way through into the Sweet 16. The only exceptions are Auburn, the 5 seed, and Oregon, a pretty talented and on-fire 12 seed. Good or bad for fans and the tournament, Reid, that so many of the highly seeded teams have advanced?
Lots of complaining on Twitter, I can tell you that much. I know that a 12 seed in Oregon isn't exactly your typical Cinderella. I get that they play in the mid-major Pac-12 conference. That's what the Pac-12 is this year, by the way. But this is a team that was ranked in the top 15 preseason. Same with Auburn. That was a top 15 team. So these are very talented teams. You know what? I get it. You want 1-2 Cinderellas going into that second weekend. And yet, when it all comes down to it, I want the best teams to be around. I don't want the Virginias of the world to get knocked out in the first round. I didn't want Tennessee to get upset by Iowa. I want to see the best teams vying for the title. So maybe I'm a hater, but I'm kind of excited the fact that things went the way they mostly were supposed to go.
All right, Buzzkill Forgrave, because it went that way, Murray State and Ja Morant not going to advance, and we're not going to get to see him play any more basketball, at least in this tournament. We'll see him next at the next level. What do you make of what you saw and how it impacted perhaps the view of the NBA folks who get to decide where and when he'll be drafted in the NBA draft?
That is the one Cinderella I really wanted to see, because John Morant, he made himself, like we call college basketball an amateur sport. He actually made himself $1.6 million on Thursday, because, Bill, that's the difference between the first 3 years of a rookie contract for the number 3 overall pick and the number 2 overall pick. I really think that he solidified himself as the solid number 2 behind Zion Williamson. What people see about him on the highlight is they see that sort of athleticism, that hang in the air athleticism, that dunk on everybody athleticism. What they don't get to see if you're just watching YouTube clips of the guy is how he controls a basketball game. He has, for a 20-year-old point guard, just a preternatural feel for the game of basketball. That's what we saw in that first game on Thursday. We saw John Morant, from beginning to end, absolutely control the game. He thinks basketball as well as he is an athlete in basketball, and I do think he is a potential superstar in the making, in the mold of a Russell Westbrook, a John Wall, a De'Aaron Fox type guy. But call me crazy, I think his ceiling might even be a little bit higher than those dudes. That may be crazy.
I love the nicknames keep coming. First we have Buzzkill Forgrave. Now we have Big Word Forgrave. I've known Reid a long time. He slips those big words in. Let me ask you about some big names. Actually, one of their teammates, Zion and RJ with Duke. We know that they're going to be superstars. At least people project them to be at the next level. What do you make of their teammate Cam Reddish and what he has done for his NBA stock so far the first weekend?
You know, it's interesting. He had kind of a yin and yang first weekend. Cam Reddish is a guy who's a bit of an enigma. I was talking to a scout the other day who said he's kind of a sometimes player. What this scout wanted is for him to become an all-the-time player. Another Western Conference executive referred to him to me as he's a perfect Robin, but he's not a Batman. And when you're drafting in the top 5, you generally want a Batman. What we saw from Cam Reddish was, I thought, one not great game in the first round against North Dakota State, where he kind of floated. He only took 9 shots. He only scored 12 points. But then in that UCF game, he was sort of the perfect third wheel to Zion and RJ. He had an efficient 13 points. He had 11 rebounds. He played hard. He played great defense. He hit a couple of big threes. What the ceiling for this guy is a Paul George, a guy who can be a star, sort of a 1B type of player next to a superstar next to him.
All right, Reid, so keeping with the draft talk for just a moment, are there some other names maybe that people aren't paying attention to that burst onto the stage, or at least for folks who half pay attention, burst onto their consciousness that you think could be impact guys at the next level?
My friend, I am going to give you 2. That's the type of generous fellow that I am. One of them, now this is a mouthful, Mfiondu Kabengele. Did I practice that a lot over the past week? Yes, Bill, I did. Kabengele for Florida State is an absolute stud. He only played 21 minutes a game this year. He is probably, I think, the best 6-man in college basketball. The fact that he doesn't get more minutes, it's kind of beyond me, but it just shows how deep this Florida State team is. I really think this team has a shot at the Final Four. And with Kabengele, he's a 21, 22-year-old redshirt sophomore. He's a guy who's a supreme athlete, a really big body, 6'10", 250, and he showed out that first weekend. 21-10 in the first game, 22-7 in the second game. Florida State is really, really tough, but I do think Kabengele, he may be a dark horse first-round pick. And on the other team, in that same exact region, Gonzaga has a dude named Brandon Clark. You're going to look and say, man, he scored 36 points on 15 of 18 shooting in the second game. But more important for him is his defense. He is a Jordan Bell-esque, versatile small ball 5. He had 5 blocks, 2 steals, and 8 rebounds to go with those 36 points. This is a guy who, 10 years ago would have considered a tweener. People wouldn't be able to see what position he is in the NBA. Today, you say, we don't have positions, we just have basketball players, and that's what that dude is. He is a basketball player.
All right, returning back to the tournament very quickly. A couple last questions for you. Appreciate the time. The team from my home state that provided some of the biggest drama and made my father, an Iowa alum, so angry we can't talk to him for a week. We got to steer clear of Dad for a while because of how that game ended. Was that 25-point comeback against Tennessee? The Hawkeyes lose. Tennessee moves on. What does that win, that near escape from Tennessee, Reid, do you think do for that Tennessee team?
You know, in a weird way, I think it could help them. You blow that 25-point lead. You were in panic mode. You spend the entire second half turning the ball over. This is the worst possible situation, and somehow you survived. You pulled it out. Like I said about Duke, surviving against UCF. Every team that goes deep in this tournament ends up having one of those really, really tough moments. That game, look, there were some questionable calls by officiating. I believe Tennessee should have won it in regulation, but they didn't. And what they did was come overtime, they were bent. They came out, and I think Grant Williams proved himself why he is one of the smartest players in college basketball. Just made timely plays at the right moment, won them the game. Look, this team, they've had a couple bumps along the road, but really, since the beginning of the season, I'm not sure if there's been a more consistent team than Tennessee.
Yeah, Reid Forgrave no longer welcome in the elder Reiter household because I know my parents believe the officials hosed Iowa out of the game. Mom, Dad, that's a little dose of reality for you. All right, last question, Reid. You can adjust it now. You get a reset. What's your Final Four? What's your championship game? What's your champion look like, having gotten a look at the field and the survivors?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I still want, maybe I just want it too much. You know, I'm like LeVar Ball. I want to speak it into existence, right? I want UNC and Duke in the title game, so I'm going to stick with that. In the other brackets, boy, I still like what I originally had. Tennessee, because they survived. I think that's a team that can have some momentum. And then on the other side of the bracket, Texas Tech. Jarrett Culver looks like a potential top 5 pick. This defense is for real. Yes, it's not always pretty basketball, but Chris Beard is a coaching star in the making. An NBA source over the weekend said he could be like a Brad Stevens type guy, a guy who succeeds getting good guys to come to a place they didn't expect and can take them all the way. This is a guy who has a very, very bright future. I really like that Texas Tech team. Still going to stick with Duke over UNC in the final.
All right, Reid, I'm going to speak this into existence. A little professional advice from one friend to another. Don't try to emulate LeVar Ball, although do try to emulate Reid Forgrave's insight because it was amazing. Buddy, thanks for the time.
Thanks, brother. Nice talking with you.
All right, let's transition to some NFL. Gronk is gone, or at least he is retired. We're going to go inside the numbers on one of the most talented and most interesting tight ends we've ever seen in the NFL when we come back to the show, Writer's Block, here on CBS Sports HQ.
Is he able to get this chip on his shoulder by people saying he's too old and how that motivates?
The guy is old. He's 41. Hey, Tom!
Gronky!
You old!
Who's having more fun than him tonight? Nobody.
All right, we're going inside the numbers on Gronk. We're all losers when Gronk steps away. We start with the number 79. Rob Gronkowski ended his great career with 79 total touchdowns. Puts him at third on the all-time list, behind greats Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. Next up is the number 12. Gronk also caught 12 touchdown passes in the postseason. The 3-time Super Bowl winner is only behind the legend Jerry Rice for the most touchdown receptions in the postseason. How about number 4? Gronk is the only NFL player in NFL history to catch a touchdown in 4 consecutive playoff games. It does not hurt, of course, to have the man you just saw, old man Tom Brady, as your QB. The number 1 is next up. One list he ranks number 1 on is with his own team. Gronk has the most touchdowns scored in franchise history for the New England Patriots. The number 3, Rob Gronkowski has at least 3 seasons playing in the NFL with 1,000 or more receiving yards and 10-plus touchdowns. That is the most by a tight end in NFL history. This remarkable accomplishment for a tight end also includes his 17 touchdowns back in the 2011 season. And finally, plus 600, even without their Hall of Fame tight end. The Patriots are probably going to be just fine, at least according to Westgate. Patriots are still the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, once again at plus 600. And while he certainly aided them in their last Super Bowl win, the one before it came without Gronk, he's amazing. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the great tight ends we've ever seen. He's also just a piece in the machine that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady plug in, Hall of Famers or otherwise, to do their thing and to be amazing. By the way, I've mentioned this a few times. Kind of, bittersweet this week here on the show. We're off Thursday, Friday because of tournament coverage on your home for streaming sports here on CBS Sports HQ. And then starting next week, I'll be doing the show from Los Angeles. We did the show there before HQ launched. So in some ways, it's kind of going back to the future a little bit. Very excited about that. 2 more shows tomorrow and Wednesday doing Writer's Block from New York City. Then it's La La Land. We'll be doing the same show, just from a sunnier and more temperate place. Chris Hassel's coming up in just a minute on CBS Sports HQ. In fact, I'm going to stick around and shoot the breeze with Chris for just a couple minutes. And then in 30 minutes on Sportsline, EK, Eric Casillas, taking over. 2 very talented dudes. I mean, you're in good hands here on your home for streaming sports. And we'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 Pacific on Writer's Block.